My name is Olivia. I am 33, a single mom, and last week an invitation almost made me choke on my coffee. It was a glossy pink card for my sister's baby shower, all cursive letters and fake sweetness. At the bottom, in thick black ink, one line burned into my brain. Gifts $6,000 minimum. For a moment I just stared. $6,000. For someone who counts every grocery trip, it felt less like an invitation and more like a threat. I could already hear the usual comments about how I never contribute enough, even though I was the one they were counting on for the down payment on their dream house. I dropped the card onto the table and opened my banking app, staring at the number that represented years of sacrifice. Then I closed it and made a different choice. I bought a $60 Target gift card, slid it into a plain envelope, and decided I would show up exactly as I was. No apologies. At the party, the gift table looked like a luxury showroom. Designer bags, thick envelopes, towering boxes. My thin little envelope might as well have been a stain. Eyes flicked from it to me, smiles turning stiff. Then my father cleared his throat, loud enough to cut through the music. "Some people just don't value family," he announced, looking straight at me. The room froze. Heat rushed up my neck. But instead of shrinking, I felt something inside me go perfectly, dangerously calm. I slipped my hand into my bag and wrapped my fingers around my phone. If they wanted to measure love in money, I was about to rewrite the rules. What happened after I opened that app and made a transfer changed everything. Stay until the end to hear it. My father's words were still hanging in the air when I felt a small hand slide into mine. "Mom," Daniel whispered, his fingers tightening around my palm. "Why is Grandpa looking at you like that?" I forced my jaw to unclench and looked down at him. 7 years old, standing in his two small sneakers and the button-up shirt he called his fancy shirt. He had spent the car ride over practicing how to say "Congratulations, Auntie" without tripping over the word. Now his eyes were darting between me, the gift table, and the sea of adults pretending not to stare. It was hard to miss why they were staring. The gift table looked like a catalog page, each box and bag screaming money. A mountain of monogrammed diaper bags, a stroller that cost more than my car, thick white envelopes, some with designer store logos peeking out. I could almost see the price tags floating over them in my mind. 2,800, 3,500, 5,000. Each amount was more than my monthly rent. And in the middle of all that, my plain white envelope with the $60 Target gift card. No ribbons, no gold foil, just my cramped handwriting and the weight of every judgment I had ever swallowed for the sake of keeping the peace. Across the room, my sister was surrounded by a cluster of friends, laughing too loudly, one manicured hand resting on her belly. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. The message had already been delivered in bold black ink on that invitation. Gifts, 6,000 minimum. It was ridiculous, tacky, and somehow exactly on brand for the family that taught me love was conditional, and loyalty was a one-way street. I felt my phone in my bag, cool and solid against my fingers. In that phone sat a carefully arranged transfer, one I had set up after weeks of meetings with a realtor and a loan officer, after years of scrimping and saving and saying no to myself so I could say yes to them. A $420,000 down payment on the house my parents and my sister had already started calling the family home. They had no idea that money existed because of me. They only knew it was coming. They talked about it like weather, like something they were owed. When your sister finally helps with the house, when we move into the house, when the baby has a proper nursery in the house. My father, Michael, took a step closer to the gift table, one hand gesturing toward the pile like a game show host. "Now this," he said, "this is what family does. We show up. We sacrifice. Some of us anyway." His eyes cut back to me, slow and deliberate. A couple of relatives chuckled softly, the uncomfortable kind of laugh that says, "I don't agree, but I'm not going to stop him." I could feel Daniel watching me, waiting to see how I would react. Was this what he thought family was supposed to sound like? Humiliation dressed up as a speech about values? I swallowed hard, blinked once, and let my expression smooth into something cool, almost bored. Without breaking eye contact with my father, I slipped my phone out, unlocked it, and opened my banking app. My thumb hovered over the scheduled transfer. All those years of late-night nursing shifts, side gigs, saying no to vacations, ignoring the sting in my chest when I walked past stores I used to shop in before I became the disappointment. All of that sat condensed into a single number and a single button. Next to me, Daniel shifted. "Mom, did we do something wrong?" he asked quietly. His voice was so small I almost missed it under the hum of conversations and the clink of glasses. I shook my head once. "No, baby. We didn't do anything wrong." I hit cancel. Then, in the same breath, I started a new transfer and moved every cent of that house money out of the joint escrow account and into an account with only my name on it. No shared access, no more assumptions, no more bleeding for people who would publicly shame me over a gift card while privately draining my savings. As the confirmation screen popped up, I tapped another icon and slid my phone back onto the table, screen down but recording. If my family wanted to perform, I was finally ready to keep the receipts. I squeezed Daniel's hand and pulled him a little closer to my side. I could not control what my father said. I could not control how my sister counted love in dollar signs. But I could control what my son learned from watching me. Would Daniel grow up believing he had to earn his place in this family with gifts and silence? Or would he remember the day his mother finally stopped apologizing for not being rich enough to be respected? As the room slowly unfroze and conversations started up in awkward little bursts, I stayed where I was, my phone quietly recording on the table, Daniel pressed against my side. On the surface, nothing had changed. Balloons floated. Someone refilled the punch bowl. The playlist moved on to another overly cheerful song. Inside my head, though, it felt like someone had finally flipped on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through for years. My family loved to say I was overly sensitive, that I held on to things. Maybe they were right. Because as I watched my father fuss over the expensive gifts, a brutal little list started writing itself in my mind. The Christmas they gave my sister a car with a bow on top and handed me a blender, reminding me how practical I was. The time I took unpaid leave to stay with Mom after her surgery, then got written up at work and eventually pushed out, while everyone else talked about how lucky I was to have more time with Daniel. The night my sister showed up at my apartment crying because she was short just this once, and I wired her $10,000 from my emergency fund. She never mentioned it again. No one did. The birthday party where they joked, in front of everyone, that I was the responsible one. Code for the one who could always be counted on to pick up the slack, cover the bill, swallow the insult. The countless times I heard, "You know your sister has more potential," as if being a single mom erased every ounce of mine. I had been their safety net even while they made me feel like the hole in the floor. I looked over at my sister now. She was holding up a tiny designer onesie while a friend squealed and took pictures. My sister laughed, head thrown back, the very image of a woman whose life was curated to be envied. Nobody in this room knew that her credit score was wrecked 3 years ago, that I was the one who co-signed the car she parked outside, that I'd quietly paid off a debt collection so it wouldn't show up when the bank checked her file for the house mortgage. Nobody knew that the only reason the realtor took them seriously was because my name, steady, boring, reliable, was on the paperwork. They didn't know that 5 months ago, when my sister forgot to make the first escrow deposit, I drained the small retirement account I'd built before I had Daniel just to keep the deal alive. I remembered sitting in my car in the parking lot of my old job, staring at the email that said my role had been restructured and thinking, at least they'll have the house. At least something good will come out of this. At least. That phrase had followed me like a shadow. At least they have each other. At least you're strong. At least Daniel has a roof over his head. At least, at least, at least. Always a consolation prize. Never an actual win. Across the room, my father laughed at something, clapping a hand on someone's shoulder. I could almost hear his voice from years ago. Family is everything, Olivia. We look after each other. Funny how we always meant me looking after them. My phone buzzed faintly on the table, a notification quietly confirming the transfer had gone through. Funds moved, escrow cleared out, account closed. Years of sacrifice reclaimed in a single, cold line of text. I wasn't just canceling a payment, I was canceling a role. Next to me, Daniel leaned closer and whispered, "Mom, are we in trouble?" Everyone keeps looking at us. I exhaled slowly. "No, baby," I murmured. "If anyone's in trouble, it's not us." Because as I stood there, watching my family toast a future they assumed I would bankroll, another thought slid into place, sharper than anger and steadier than fear. If I kept pretending this was normal, Daniel would grow up thinking this was what love looked like. Giving until it hurt while people called you selfish anyway. And I refused to let my son inherit that kind of wound. A fork clinked against a glass somewhere near the punch bowl, a sharp little ping that sliced through the murmur of conversations. Someone laughed too loudly. A baby toy squeaked. The playlist hiccuped as the next song loaded. All these tiny sounds stacked on top of each other until they felt like pressure in my skull. I watched my father work the room like it was his stage, drifting from guest to guest, repeating the same lines about sacrifice and family. My sister kept unwrapping gifts, tissue paper rustling like applause after every overpriced present. No one mentioned the invitation. No one mentioned the gift 6,000 minimum line that might as well have been a spotlight pointed at my bank account. Fine. If they wanted a performance, I could give them one. I picked up my phone just enough to check that the recording was still going, then slid it back down. My thumb brushed the edge of the screen, and for a brief second I imagined sending the audio to every group chat they thought I wasn't in. Not yet, I told myself. Timing matters. Daniel shifted beside me, bored now that the initial weirdness had passed. "Mom, can I get some cake?" he whispered. "Not yet," I said softly. "Stay with me for a minute." I straightened, smoothed the front of my dress with one hand, and led him with me as I stepped away from the corner. My heart thudded hard, but not in that panicked way I was used to. This felt different. Focused. I wasn't stumbling into another humiliation. I was walking into something I had chosen. I moved toward the center of the room, toward the gift table, toward my father. As I passed, conversations dipped and then broke off. A couple of people pretended to adjust their phones or their cups, their eyes following me anyway. The air felt suddenly heavier, like everyone sensed something was about to happen but no one wanted to be the first to acknowledge it. My father turned as I approached, still mid-sentence with an older aunt. When he saw me, his mouth curled into a tight, practiced smile. "There you are," he said. "Enjoying the party?" His tone was light. His eyes were not. I stopped just short of the gift table, close enough to see the embossed logos on the envelopes stacked like trophies. Daniel pressed in closer, his arm brushing my leg. I looked at my father, really looked at him. The man who loved to talk about values. The man who never once asked how many nights I skipped dinner so I could cover one more bill, one more crisis that wasn't mine. "Is that what you really think?" I asked quietly. "That I don't value family?" The aunt beside him shifted, suddenly very interested in her bracelet. My father's smile flattened. "Olivia, let's not make a scene," he said under his breath. "It's your sister's day." A scene! That's what they always called it when I refused to swallow something sharp. A scene. Behind my father, my sister finally glanced over, sensing the shift. Her laughter stumbled and then stopped. The room's sound changed again, conversations thinning into a fuzz of whispers and half-sentences. The playlist hit a chorus that felt almost mocking. I kept my voice level. "You just told a room full of people that some of us don't value family," while staring at me, over a gift. His jaw tightened. "Well, if the shoe fits," he said lightly. "You know everyone has been working hard to make this day special. Some people went above and beyond." My eyes flicked to the mountain of gifts, then back to him. Above and beyond, huh? I could feel the old script tugging at me. Say sorry. Make a joke. Change the subject. Save the mood. Be the good one. The reasonable one. Instead, I let the silence stretch. Let him feel it. Let everyone feel it. Daniel's fingers dug into my hand. "Mom," he whispered, barely audible. I squeezed back. "It's okay," I murmured, still watching my father. "You want to talk about who values family?" I said slowly. "Fine. But if you're going to use me as an example in front of everyone, we're going to use the whole story. Not just the parts that make me look small." A couple of heads turned fully toward us now, no longer pretending. My sister shifted in her chair, the gift bag on her lap forgotten. "Olivia," he warned, his voice low. "This isn't the time." I tilted my head. "When is the time? When we're signing papers for a house you all keep calling yours? When you need me to fix another financial mess? When you want me to show up quietly, pay what you expect, and smile for the pictures?" My father opened his mouth, then closed it again. His gaze flicked around, aware now that eyes and ears were on us. The old me would have stopped right there. I would have felt the heat of attention and backed down, later telling myself it wasn't worth it, that at least things didn't get worse. But the money was already gone. The safety net they assumed they owned had already been pulled out from under them. The version of me who would keep covering for them had disappeared with it. I took a small breath, just enough to steady my voice. "You know what I keep thinking?" I said. "I keep thinking about how easy it was for you to say that sentence in front of my son. Some people don't value family." A murmur rippled through the room. Daniel glanced up at me, eyes wide. I lifted my chin. Could one sentence really break a lifetime of this? I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing. If I stayed quiet, I'd be helping them build another generation of it. My sister shifted again, finally speaking up, her tone forced bright. "Olivia, can we please not do this today? It's supposed to be a happy occasion." I turned to her, my expression calm. "It still can be," I said. "That depends on whether we keep pretending this is normal." Somewhere on the table behind me, my phone vibrated again, a soft, insistent buzz against the wood. A reminder that the first domino had already fallen, even if no one else in the room knew it yet. I looked from my father to my sister, then back to the people watching us, and made a decision. If they wanted to talk about what I did or didn't do for this family, today was the day we stopped whispering and started naming things out loud. Would my words be enough to crack the pretty little shell they'd built around their version of reality, or would they just label me dramatic and move on? I didn't know. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the answer. My sister pushed herself up from the armchair, one hand on her belly, her smile tight. "Olivia," she said, "it's really not that serious. The 6,000 thing was just guidance. People know we're trying to get the house. They wanted to contribute." "A suggestion doesn't come with a price tag," I said. 6,000 isn't guidance. It's a cover charge. For family." A low murmur went through the room. My father cut my sister a glance and stepped in front of her. "No one forced you to do anything," he said. "But when the rest of us are making sacrifices and you show up like that, people notice." "Like what?" I asked. "Like a single mom who still bothered to be here? Or like the person who has quietly kept this family's finances from falling apart?" A couple of relatives frowned. My father's eyes hardened. "Olivia." "No," Daniel blurted. The word snapped through the silence. Every head turned toward him. His face was red, his jaw clenched. "Grandpa," he said, his voice wobbling but loud enough. "Mom always helps. She's always working. You said she was paying for the house. The room went dead quiet. My sister's head snapped toward my father. You told him that? She hissed. My father looked caught for half a heartbeat, then lifted his chin. We were just talking, he said. We all agreed Olivia wanted to help. She's the responsible one. I let out a breath that sounded too close to a laugh. You want to talk about help? I said. I'm the one who emptied my retirement account so escrow wouldn't fall through when the first payment was forgotten. My name is on the paperwork so a bank would even talk to you. I lined up a $420,000 down payment on that house you keep calling your family home. Gasps popped around us. My sister stared at me. You never told me that, she said. You never asked, I replied. You just acted like it was already yours. The same way you thought you could write gifts, 6,000 minimum on an invitation, and I'd quietly make it happen. My father's face flushed. We were counting on you, he snapped. This is what family does. We invest in each other. You're acting like we're robbing you. I held his gaze. Stealing would require you to admit the money was mine first. People shifted, murmuring. Behind me, my phone buzzed once on the table. The truth is, I said, I did want to help. I wanted Daniel to have a place for holidays that didn't feel like he was visiting people who barely tolerated him. I thought if I gave enough, you'd eventually see me as more than a walking wallet with a bad marital history. But looking at that invitation this morning, hearing you call me selfish in front of my son, it hit me. I haven't been investing in family. I've been bankrolling the way you disrespect me. My sister shook her head, tears gathering. Olivia, please, don't do this, she whispered. We already told everyone about the house. I looked from her to my father, to the guests watching us like a show. That's the thing, I said quietly. You told everyone. You just never really talked to the person you expected to pay for it. For a few seconds after I said I had moved the house money, the room simply stopped. Conversations died mid-sentence. Someone turned the music down. Daniel's fingers dug into my palm. Then a voice from the back finally broke the silence. I will be honest. That invitation was a lot, my cousin said. I thought the 6,000 thing was a joke. Her husband shrugged. 6 grand as a minimum gift is crazy, he muttered. A few heads nodded. My sister's face went red. We were not forcing anyone, she snapped, then tried to sound calm. It was guidance. Everyone knows we are getting the house. People wanted to help. That is called family. My father jumped on that. Exactly, he said. We sacrifice for each other. We know what this house means. Look around. Everyone stepped up. Then you stroll in with a bargain card and an attitude. Daniel pressed against my side. My jaw clenched. That $60 card, I said, buys diapers and formula and detergent. The boring things that actually keep a baby alive. And this is not about a card. This is about you putting a price on loyalty and calling it love. A woman near the wall spoke. I did not give 6,000, she said. Are you judging me too? My father hesitated. Of course not, he said. This is about pattern. Your grandparents, your sister, your brother? He gestured vaguely. They always show up when it matters. You talk about family, Olivia, but when it is time to prove it, you are nowhere. I almost laughed. Nowhere, I repeated. I am the one who wired 10,000 when the collection calls would not stop. I am the one who emptied my retirement account to keep escrow from collapsing. I am the one whose name is on every line of that file because without my credit, no bank would touch your dream. You call that nowhere. My sister stared at me. You said you wanted to help, she whispered. I did, I said, until helping meant disappearing, until I got an invitation that told everyone exactly how much it costs to stay in your good graces. Near the door, an uncle shifted. Maybe this should be private, he muttered. There it was again, the old rule. Keep the money and the insults behind closed doors so the story can be rewritten later. I shook my head. No, It has been private for years. The money, the digs. The way I am good enough to fix everything but never good enough to respect. You printed a price at the bottom of an invitation. Do not ask me to hide the rest. My father's mouth flattened. Be careful, he said. You will regret cutting us off like this. I met his eyes and did not look away. Maybe, I said. But if I regret anything, it will be that I waited this long to protect myself and my son. Daniel squeezed my hand. Mom, can we go home? He whispered. Not yet, I told him softly, glancing at my phone on the table, waiting for it to ring. Not yet. Some things have to fall apart where everyone can see them, or they never change at all. My phone buzzed again, harder this time, skittering a little on the table. A second later, another phone started ringing across the room. The tone was loud, chirpy, painfully out of place. My sister fumbled in her handbag, pulled her phone out, glanced at the screen, and frowned. It is the realtor, she said, confused. Why is he calling on a Saturday? My father's head snapped toward her. Put it on speaker, he said. She hesitated. Dad, put it on speaker, he repeated, his voice leaving no room for argument. Hands shaking, she tapped the screen and held the phone out. The room fell into a hush so complete you could hear the balloons rubbing against the ceiling. Hey guys! The realtor's bright voice filled the air, just a little too loud. I have been trying to reach you. I did not want you getting blindsided by an email. My stomach twisted even though I already knew what was coming. What is this about? My father asked, his tone clipped. There was a pause on the line, the sound of someone choosing their words very carefully. So, I am afraid the lender flagged your file this morning, the realtor said. The primary down payment funds were withdrawn from escrow. Without that money, the deal cannot move forward. The bank has put the application on hold, and unless the funds are replaced immediately, the contract will be canceled. My sister's face drained of color. That is impossible, she whispered. The money is there. It is our house. I am really sorry, the realtor said. But the wire I saw was reversed. The account holder pulled everything back to a personal account. Without those funds, the lenders consider the file unsupported. Who authorized that? My father demanded. The realtor cleared his throat. The account was in Olivia's name only. Legally, she did. Every head in the room turned toward me at once. My father looked like he had been slapped. You can fix this, he said to me, ignoring the realtor now. Put it back. Call them. Tell them it was a mistake. I met his eyes. It was not a mistake. On the phone, the realtor spoke again. Slower now. Look, I do not know what is happening, but I need to be clear. If the funds are not back in escrow within 3 business days, the seller will walk. And you could be liable for breach penalties. My sister made a choked sound and ended the call without saying goodbye. The room seemed to tilt around her. You ruined us, she whispered at me. You just ruined everything. I shook my head. No. I stopped feeding a system that was already ruining me. My father stepped toward me, so close I could see the tiny red veins in his eyes. Do you have any idea how this makes us look? He hissed. Yes, I said softly, like the kind of people who write $6,000 minimum on an invitation and then try to shame the person they expected to buy them a house. Behind him, a cousin spoke up, stronger this time. She is not wrong, he said. This has been messed up for a long time. An aunt nodded, arms folded. You cannot call her selfish after everything she has done, she added. That is not right. For the first time, my father looked unsure. Not sorry, not yet. But shaken in a way I had never seen. His power was built on people quietly agreeing with him. That quiet was gone. My sister sank back into the chair, sobbing, guests hovering awkwardly around her. No one came to pull me aside. No one told me to apologize. Some people avoided my eyes. Others met my gaze and held it, something like respect or relief flickering there. Daniel tugged my hand again. Mom, can we go now? I looked at my family one last time, at the glittering table of gifts that suddenly looked cheap compared to the ugliness around them. At my father, furious and cornered. At my sister, crumbling under the weight of expectations she had happily piled onto me for years. Yes, I said, we are going. I picked up my phone, stopped the recording, and slipped it into my bag. I did not raise my voice. I did not slam anything. I just turned, walked Daniel to the door, and left. Months later, when I used part of that reclaimed money to put a down payment on a small condo for me and Daniel, I remembered the way my father's voice had cracked on the word regret. We ate pizza on the floor the first night, boxes for chairs, Daniel grinning around a slice. "Mom," he said, "this feels like our house." It was, not bought with guilt, not held together by fear, just ours. My family told anyone who would listen that I had betrayed them. They spun their version of the story in group chats and holiday gatherings I no longer attended. Sometimes, late at night, a part of me wondered if I should have swallowed it one more time, just to keep the peace. Then I would look at Daniel sleeping in his room, safe in a home I paid for without apologizing, and ask myself the only question that still mattered. What kind of legacy did I want my son to inherit? Loyalty built on fear, or the courage to walk away from people who put a price tag on love?